Hey guys, hope you're doing well. So I'm going to do this video and kind of talk about healing and what it means and how the hell we do it, right? So I feel like there's so much information kind of thrown out. This is really just kind of like a simple way to break it down. So what are we looking at? Like, what is healing? Healing is kind of going back to the areas where we have traumas or we have perceptions, we have emotional responses to things that have happened to us that caused us to not feel good, to not feel safe, to not feel the way we want to feel, essentially, right? So when we have a trauma, it can be something very catastrophic or major that like everybody outwardly would look at it and be like, okay, wow, that's a trauma. Or sometimes we have like the smaller traumas where it's, as a child, we were so excited about something. We put so much energy or so much effort into a project or something that just meant so much to us, and our parent dismissed it or ignored it. Or sometimes we have emotions as kids and our parents invalidate them. Those are traumas too, because basically what it is it teaches you, or it tells you as a child, that there's something wrong with the way you're feeling, that it wasn't good enough. It changes your perception on yourself, right? Sometimes we have, very huge giant traumas like physically being abused or sexual assault or, seeing something violent happen to us or in front of us. All of these are traumas though, right? All of these create emotional responses in our body, and they create perceptions around things. They tell us stories around things. And when we can't neutralize them or get to the reality of what they are, they cause us to have emotional reactions or physical reactions in our body that make us uncomfortable, that we don't like. So first thing I want to say is there's nothing wrong with you. You might not like the feelings, you might not like your behaviors, you might not like your reactions, but there's nothing wrong with you. Everything you're doing is a way to cope with what was given to you, and coping in the best way you knew how to calm the energy down, to calm the emotions down. So a lot of times people have symptoms of anxiety where they become really anxious, really worried. They'll start thinking about stuff. Their whole body just feels very uncomfortable, very jittery and anxious. That's really feeling unsafe. When you actually look at it, it's just feeling unsafe in your body. And your body is reacting because something just triggered there being a problem. Something just triggered there is something wrong and I'm unsafe. So then your mind starts going, what's unsafe? What's kind of going on right now? The best thing to do is self-awareness, and this is going to help you with all of this, right? It's not, okay, let me just go into this when I say self-awareness. So it's being aware of your physical body and your mind and kind of your whole self, being aware of all of you, which is when you are in a situation where you're feeling triggered, being aware that you're triggered, being aware how your body's feeling, what your mind is thinking, all of that. As you kind of start getting more used to what you're feeling, go into the why. Like, why am I feeling like this? Like, what happened? What am I telling myself? What is my mind kind of saying? And kind of start unpacking it a little bit. Kind of seeing, is there an emotion here? Is there a need here? Is there something here that reminds me of something from the past that feels very similar? And it's making me feel uncomfortable. It's making me feel unsafe. It's making me feel scared. The more you do this, the more you're going to be aware of what's really going on with you, rather than the way your body is reacting to stuff. And this is how you're going to heal it. And this is how you're going to also make it more manageable, because you're going to be able to deal with it in a healthy way that's different than the way you learned in the past. So for me, like if I get triggered by somebody, I can usually tell because I'll feel really anxious and I'll want to run away. Almost immediately, I'm like, okay, I want to go. I want to get off the phone. I want to leave. I feel very overwhelmed in my body, very anxious. And so like breaking that down is there's a feeling of unsafety there. So my immediate thing is I want to go process it. Now that I've, kind of learned how to deal with stuff a lot better, mine is I want to go process it, and I want to go understand what I'm feeling and why, so I can calm this down and so I can make peace with it. So sometimes it's a feeling that I'm trying to think of like an example to give you. So say like an abandonment fear, right? Somebody says something where it now triggers this fear of abandonment, or somebody behaves in a way that reminds me of somebody who's left me or, triggered the abandonment wound. You might project that onto somebody and think it has something to do with what the person said and did. But as you go through the healing, as you have the self-awareness, you can take a step back and say, is this other person, or is this just my response to this person? And most of the time it's your response to that person. And I'm not talking about abuse and those type of situations. I'm just talking about in a general sense, right? So you can sit back and you can say, okay, This has nothing to do with that person. What that did was it triggered this fear in me of being abandoned. What did that make me feel like? Why is that? And it's, I'm not good enough. People don't want to stick around. I'm, not worthy, whatever it is. And then you give yourself that comfort. You give yourself that love. You give yourself that need, whatever that need is, that's below the surface, that's making you feel that way. And I also like to rub my arm, rub your hand, rub your thing, give yourself a hug, take some deep breaths, say validating statements to yourself. So that's what I mean. It's the self-awareness. That's how you deal with the triggers and learn how to cope with them a lot better. So instead of running from, oh my God, I'm anxious, I don't want to feel anxious, go, wait, why am I feeling anxious? What is this feeling? And like I said, most of the time it's feeling not safe. Why am I not feeling safe? One of the easiest ways to kind of calm it down in the moment is, do I look safe? Like, does everything kind of look safe? Is there anything going on that's making me feel unsafe? Okay, let me soothe my body right now. Let me calm my mind down. Let me not spiral and go into this. Let me take some deep breaths, breathes, or whatever works for you to calm your mind down. And then go into it afterward when you have a calm mind. Because when your mind is not calm and your body is, hyperactive, you're not going to be able to really get the answer. You're only going to kind of be in trauma. How you deal with the trauma is keep going into your emotions, keep going into your feelings. Anytime you're getting triggered by anybody, take responsibility and ownership for you being triggered and going to you. Learn to get to know you. I personally love going outside and talking to myself, or like I always talk about this, a video journal like this. I like to video journal or look in the mirror, because when I'm doing that, I'm seeing myself and I'm giving myself validation I never got. I was very unseen as a child. So for me, when I look in the mirror or I look in a video, I'm seeing me. I'm seeing my inner child that was not seen. And it's giving me that love and validation that I've needed. And then I say nice things to her and try to make her feel better. So it's treating yourself kind of like the child. Briefly, I'll talk about this. A lot of people kind of use like ego, inner child interchangeably. I don't think we really always talk about it. To me, your inner child is basically this energy child version of yourself, where a lot of times your trauma starts. Mine usually is around 4 or 5 when I'm feeling her, around 4 or 5. It's kind of that inner child energy. So wherever kind of trauma started, or wherever your inner child kind of feels at, right? Like a specific age usually, or age range usually. What happens is something gets triggered that reminds you of something that's unresolved from the past. And then what happens is your brain goes, shit, let's start scanning for some stuff and kind of seeing what this reminds us of. And then your whole body kind of goes into whatever that old energy was. It all relates. So when you go back to the trauma, once you have the awareness to what it is, you go back to the trauma, you process the trauma. How did I feel in that moment? What did it make me feel? What did it make me tell myself? What did I think? And you sit with those emotions, and you sit with those discomforts, and you sit with those feelings, and you allow them to come up. And you comfort yourself and give yourself what you needed that you did not receive. Whether that's words, or that is physical touch, emotional support, whatever it is that you needed, you give it to yourself. And yeah, you have to do it multiple times. Sometimes it goes away just recognizing it. Sometimes you have to go into it multiple times, and that's okay. It's just creating awareness to those triggers and then going into them and feeling them. The biggest thing I tell people, stop lying to yourself. Stop lying to yourself. A lot of times what we'll do is, and this, I see this all the time with people I do readings with, they have a parent, they have 2 parents. One parent is generally the quote unquote bad one, that's either neglectful, left their life, very abusive, whatever. You have your other parent. Sometimes that other parent didn't protect you. Sometimes that other parent didn't have your back, but they weren't as quote unquote bad as your specifically very obviously abusive or neglectful parent. So what happens is they don't want to disengage from one of their parents, because now they have no parent in their life, and that's a hard thing to deal with, right? So they'll justify, they'll lie to themselves, they'll ignore their emotions having to do with that parent because they don't want to cut them out of their lives. This is my advice I give to people is recognize and acknowledge how you felt with that parent. Just because you have the awareness does not mean you need to make a different choice, okay? If you want to keep them in your life, keep them in your life. But don't lie to yourself. Because when you lie to yourself, you create this disconnect. Then you don't trust yourself when certain things come up where you're constantly questioning, like, wait, am I being honest? Is this really my intuition? And you'll start doing that because you're disconnecting. You're giving yourself mixed signals and mixed messages that are very confusing. Be honest with yourself. Even if you're like, look, I'm not ready to make a choice, I don't feel strong enough to make a choice, that's okay. But still just be honest. You have to do that. That's the only way you're going to heal. The way you're going to heal is recognizing how you felt, processing how you felt, and letting it be. Just letting it be. Don't try to change it. Don't try to argue with it. Just let it be what it is. Feel the emotions. Process the emotions. Again, easiest way to do that. How am I feeling? How did this make me feel? Why did it make me feel like this? What did I internalize? Or, just ask yourself questions and it will naturally just start flowing. As you get used to this, it's just naturally going to happen. So you're going to go, okay, I'm feeling a little anxious right now. I'm not going to say anything to this person because I know that this is triggering something with me. Instead of emotionally reacting or pushing them away, I'm going to say, hey, look, like I'm feeling a little bit overwhelmed right now, or I'm feeling a little anxious right now. I'm going to take a little bit of space. I need to kind of figure this out. And then you're going to go figure it out yourself because now you have different coping skills. But it's learning to sit in those discomfort. It's learning to not get mad at yourself for feeling anxious, not getting mad at yourself for having emotions and being emotionally reactive, not getting mad at yourself for feeling angry, for feeling sad, for feeling disappointed or upset. It's being compassionate and validating your emotions. Just don't react out of them to people that you're hurting people, you're saying shit that's fucked up, or you're doing shit that's fucked up. That's what I mean. Like, go into them. What is going on with me? And get to know yourself and give yourself love. Stop getting mad at yourself for having feelings because you're uncomfortable with them. Stop getting mad at yourself for things that you think are wrong with you that aren't wrong with you. All of those things are normal reactions, guys. They are literally your body's way of coping. It's the same thing. It's like your car check engine light comes on and you're like, why the fuck's my car check engine light coming on? And you're getting mad at your car for the light coming on when it's trying to tell you there's a problem, go check it out. That is what your anxiety is saying. That's what your fears are saying. That's what the energy that's uncomfortable in your body is saying. That's what your thoughts are saying. They're saying, please pay attention to me. There's something that I need you to pay attention to. There's something that's going on with me. And all it wants to do is be acknowledged, seen, and recognized. It's literally just that. It just wants to be seen for what it is, which is, okay, yeah, I felt like shit with this situation. Yeah, this hurt my feelings. It made me feel like this. You don't always have to have a response to it. You don't always have to change something outwardly because of it. It's just an awareness and an acknowledgement to it. Because I think a lot of times we have this perception like, well, once I know how somebody is, then now I have to cut them out of my life, or now I have to make this choice. You'll make the choice when you're ready. Start with the baby step of acknowledging the truth and acknowledging your feelings. If you want to talk to the other person, great. But it's really more about honoring your own feelings and helping validate them within yourself. So I really hope this helped. I know it's not always easy. I promise though, as you go into it more and more and more and get used to it, just remind yourself you're safe, remind yourself you're okay, and just really just give yourself the compassion and sympathy you need as a kid. But if you're one of those people who have a really hard time doing that, or you're really hard on yourself, pretend like you're talking to a child when you're talking to yourself. Say like, if this were my kid, how would I talk to them, and do it that way. Because sometimes it's a little bit easier when we can do it that way until you get more used to it, and then start talking to yourself that way and recognizing yourself for how you are. And the other thing I'll tell you real quick is you can do this in any way. You can meditate, you can video journal, you can hand journal, you can obviously go to a therapist if you find one that's good. You can walk out in nature and just process your feelings and thoughts. Even in baths and showers can sometimes help. Even just going out in the sun sometimes can bring up some of those energies. So I hope this helps. I hope you guys all have an awesome day.